Is everybody ready? Hello, Kevin.
Whenever you're ready, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay, we are now called to order. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen. You have to speak up, Kevin.
Here.
Councilwoman Mattson.
Here.
Councilwoman Vargas.
Here.
Councilman Peterson.
Here.
Councilman Bell.
Here.
Councilman Lance.
Here.
Councilman Carlson.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Rob, are you wanting to speak now?
No, Madam Mayor, I believe that Monica should have
The
a statement for you to read
Okay.
when we go into the executive session immediately prior thereto.
Okay, but you want me to read that now before we go into the executive session?
I believe that's appropriate, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we will now enter an executive session. Consistent with law, the public will be excluded from participating or watching. The general subject matters that will be addressed during this executive session have already been stated via the written agenda. However, I will state them again now orally. There are two subject matters. One, to evaluate complaints brought against a public employee. Two, to review the performance of a public employee. Pursuant to Selah Municipal Code Section 1.06.060, no council member or participant in the executive session is permitted to disclose to non-participants what is said during the executive session. Specifically, the relevant sentence of such section says, all members of the city council, mayor, and city staff shall hold in confidence all discussions concerning issues in the executive session and shall not discuss them outside of executive session except upon approval of the council. Andrew?
My question, Madam Mayor, is your executive session still 1 hour?
I guess by a raise of hands, council, would you like to add it to an hour and a half? Or do you want to just go an hour, or do you want, okay, let's see, who wants to extend it an hour and a half by a raise of hands? 5. So I have 5 hands. Okay, so yes, Andrew, we're going
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Can we ask those council members to raise their hands and then you identify them orally for the record?
Okay, so
Madam Mayor,
raise your hands again.
I'd be willing to make a motion to extend it to an hour and a half if that's necessary.
Okay, so we have a motion to extend it to an hour and a half. Do we have a second?
I second, Madam Mayor.
Okay, by a raise of hands, and I will call your names off if your hand is raised. So we have Suzanne, Cliff, Roger, Kevin, Russ, Chris, and Jackie. We have unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to go into an executive session
For all of the public listening,
Yes.
you are now invited to voluntarily leave the meeting. If you remain and do not remove yourselves, I will be forced to remove you from the meeting and therefore lock your privileges to re-enter after an hour and a half. That's an automatic setting here on Zoom. Please take the next minute to leave. You are welcome to re-log in at 7:35. There are still a dozen or so staff members and public. If you would please leave, you will retain your right to re-enter the meeting. If I'm forced to excuse you, it will nullify your link to the meeting.
Andrew, are you asking for staff to leave too, including me?
Rick and Joe have to be.
No, not you and Joe. You need to stay. I will now be removing the 5 members of the public who have not excused themselves.
So Andrew, you're adding them now?
You are currently being recorded again.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want to take a break while the?
Madam Mayor, if you'd like to take a recess, you should make that motion now.
Okay. We have a motion to take a 5-minute break.
So move.
We have to wait till Monica gets on. I can hear her yelling in the other room.
Sorry, guys. I was making sure that YPAC was able to get back on.
Okay,
Okay, so go ahead and make whatever motions or whatever you want to do.
okay. So do we have a motion to take a 5-minute break?
I move to take a 5-minute recess.
There's a second?
Second.
Kevin, I'll second it.
Motion by Cliff to take a 5-minute break, seconded by Russ. All those in favor?
Seconded by Kevin.
Oh, sorry, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor, raise your hand. Hi. Okay, passes unanimously. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and for the public, we will be back. And we are also gonna go back into executive session, council 30 minutes. Is everybody okay with 30 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go, when we come back from our break, we will go back into executive session for 30 minutes. See you in 5 minutes.
There is 1 minute left to the council members' 5-minute recess. At the conclusion of the recess, there will be an official extension of the executive session for 30 minutes. You may, to the public, you may wait to hear that extension or not, but as soon as that extension is made, you'll need to leave the meeting again. Thank you.
She already did that.
Sherry,
Yes.
if you will officially declare the new time limit extension,
Okay.
then we will have the attendees dismissed.
So for all the attendees that are online with us, we are extending our executive session 30 more minutes. And that will put us at 8:15. We will be back and you can log back on.
You have 1 minute to exit the meeting or you will be removed. If I'm forced to remove you, you will be locked out of the meeting link in the future. The meeting has been locked.
Okay.
We're waiting for 10 members of the public to leave. I will now remove any remaining members of the public from the meeting.
Okay, are we good, Andrew? We'll wait a few minutes and let everybody get back on.
You currently have 66 viewing participants. You previously had around 70, so it's about as many people as were here before.
Okay. Okay, we are back on the record. No decisions were made. I'd kind of like to make a couple of statements here. You know, our community is in turmoil right now for many reasons. I would like to put out my apologies to a couple of people, Kathy Lambert, Kim Brewer, the Peters family, who have sent emails or called, and I have not responded to them. There has been so much going on within the city that I really did not have an answer for anybody, because everybody has their own opinion, and it's been a tough couple of weeks. I appreciate your honesty tonight, council. I think that we have come to the conclusions that these are different times for us, and we have never had to make policies or update policies when things like this happen. I have in my possession a City of Sela Council Code of Conduct. This was something that was done, I don't know how many years ago. Dawn, I don't know if you know about this. Monica seems to think that maybe this was done when Bob No was here, but it was never finished by prior councils. So we have this to work on. We also have policies to set up what is expected from our city and council members, city employees and council members, as far as what our conduct is with our citizens. I've also talked with Katrina from the Downtown Association. I've talked to her about Anthony Blue. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but he does trainings. Cliff, you are. He does trainings. So we're in talks with them to put on some of these trainings in smaller groups. So we are working on these issues. I think that this executive meeting tonight was very successful. I appreciate that everybody was so honest and coming forth tonight. Does anybody want to make a motion? No motions? So are we?
Madam Mayor?
Okay, hang on just a second. So let's hear from, who had their hand up? Kevin.
Kevin.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to read a statement, if I may.
Okay.
To my fellow Sela residents, as you know, I wrote a letter to our citizens last week that has generated a great deal of angst in our community. On reflection, and I've spent a great deal of time reflecting, I did not stop to think about that most of the Selah citizens that marched or supported the march probably didn't care about the politics, political affiliations, or some of the underlying policies of the organization Black Lives Matter. The emails I have received tell me they were marching because another Black person died unnecessarily at the hands of a police officer. They were marching because racism continues to occur in communities and it needs to stop. They were marching because they do what Selah does best and pull together during troublesome times. I failed to address those reasons and I focused on the politics of an organization. I do not agree with all the foundational policies of Black Lives Matter or the organization Movement for Black Lives, but I'll defend the right of those organizations to peacefully protest. There are two areas I agree with. Black lives do matter, and we need to have an open dialogue on how best to end racism. My worst nightmare as a council member occurred, and I caused division and pain to our community. I truly love this city, its citizens, and the way they pull together during difficult times, and I damaged some of that. So as one of our citizens suggested in their letter to me, I will listen, I will ask questions, and not be so quick to react. Not so quick to justify a position without first listening to the people in this community and better understand how they actually feel about an event or a cause. I apologize for not considering the worthy goals who those were supporting the march, and to those that felt I attacked their character, I am truly sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Russ.
Madam Mayor, I agree with you that the executive session was very important and very good. And I commend Mr. Wickenhagen for his personal introspective of his thoughts and appreciate his words. I don't think anybody here on this council had a desire to have to deal with the repercussions of what we see in the numerous emails, the calls and the complaints and concerns. As a citizen of the United States and as a council member, I believe in the First Amendment right to free speech. And I agree with the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. And I think that's a very important. As I have reviewed the information, I've tried to filter out what I don't know to be factual and rely on the things that have been confirmed and the things, the topics that I know to be real, and not rely on hearsay. That being said, I think it's very important that the city come up with or finish the code of conduct for each of the council members and the staff and how they are to act. We ask for a specific decorum at our own council meetings, and that decorum should apply to each one of us, not only in council meetings, but also in the public. I would make a motion that we finish that code of conduct and I would like to request a recommendation of a date of when you think that could be done, but I think that is vital. And so I'll leave my motion there. I do have additional thoughts, but I would leave my motion there for now.
So we have a motion by Russ to finish the code of conduct. We have a second by Cliff. And we don't meet on.
I'm sorry, I'd like to clarify, I'd like to ask, a recommendation from you or from city staff of how long we think it'll take before we take that official vote.
I will give this to Rob tomorrow and have him look over it. We don't have a council meeting until July, is it
14th,
14th?
July 14th.
I don't see why it could not be done by then to bring it to council on the 14th of July.
So I would amend my motion to include the date of July 14th as our time frame for that code of conduct.
Okay, so we have a motion by Russ to, between now and July 14th, our next council meeting, to finish the code of conduct. And we have a second by Cliff. Monica, you want to do a roll call?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Lance,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay. And then I have another question to council on the graffiti or the chalking on city property. That is another policy code that we need to clarify. If we don't search out that stuff, if we get a complaint from a citizen, we go check it out. And if it is in the city right away on city property, we remove it. So we need to put, do you want to put that in that policy, in that code? Dawn, is that something that we need to look into?
Madam Mayor, as with all street cleaning, we don't have a policy for cleaning streets or sidewalks or cleaning graffiti off of any other city property. We simply do it when we see it or when it's reported to us. Now, it isn't always reported to us. Sometimes we come across it, but we're very aggressive in the city with removing anything that defaces, whether it be a street, a sidewalk, a wall. We get it cleaned up. We don't differentiate based on message, based on artistic virtue. It just goes. So that's what we've been doing. If it is something that is truly destroying property, like with a heavy paint or chisel, we will look to take legal measures against a perpetrator who may have done it. But other than that, we're simply going to clean it up. I have a graffiti kit in the back of my city vehicle, and quite often I'm out there scrubbing it off. I think we do a good job of doing it, and we're just going to continue, regardless of the message or how fashionable the message is. We simply get it off.
Okay, but I think the question from the council was that it was in chalk, and that doesn't specify in the code.
Whether it be, yes.
It's
Whether
more of an editing tool.
Whether it's chalk or anything else, we clean it.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Russ, you have your hand up.
Yes, please. So I'd like a clarification on that. I'd like our graffiti code studied and clarified. During discussions, I do agree that under the definition that what was there is considered graffiti. However, another part of that code actually eliminates chalk from that. So I would like that clarification. I'd like to make sure we are up to date with the appropriate code. And I think that is one of the biggest issues here is the interpretation of that code can go multiple different ways.
Okay, so we will look at that code and work with code enforcement and come back on the first meeting in July.
I appreciate that.
Reply. Okay.
And then my last thought, as I've pondered the thoughts or the comments that have been made, and as I've listened to those comments be confirmed by Mr. Wayman, I have been very concerned and bothered that it's creating division and creating tensions in the city. And I as a person, as a taxpaying citizen, don't appreciate that. If it were my business and I had an employee speaking out, exercising their right of free speech to my customers, they would receive discipline and training and subsequently be fired if they were not are not following proper guidelines. My recommendation is not going to be to ask Mr. Wayman to resign. My recommendation is not going to be to fire him. However, there's a significant need for training of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. I feel like we as council and staff and mayor all need that training. And I would officially like to request that a reprimand be put into his file, but he be allowed to receive the training necessary to make appropriate comments and know when or when not to make those comments.
Well, Russ, as we discussed earlier, we are already in talks of doing some trainings. So it's just a matter of getting it organized and making sure that this is the person that we want doing it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any final thoughts from anybody?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a statement to make.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. First off, I want to make it clear that these are my opinions, my comments. They do not represent the city of Selah. I don't purport that. Here we go. We as Americans have been blessed with a legacy of governance that provides protections from the depredations of evil men. Our Constitution has a vision for unity that presupposed flawed human nature. People were capable of bad behavior individually, but capable of the greatest of sin when backed by the power of the will of the people. The founding vision of unity, our Constitution, also presupposed an agreement on the nature of rights and liberty. No man had a right to demand anything from his neighbor. Furthermore, the founding vision for unity presupposed our strongest relationships would exist outside of government, in our families, our churches, and our local communities. This founding vision has now been abandoned in pursuit of something more fulfilling to burgeoning tyrants. A communitarian vision of reality in which the mob is perceived as virtuous, in which every man has the right to protect himself from the hardships of life and the cruelties of history by demanding recompense from his neighbors. This second path toward unity requires purification. This is where my current situation stands. My observations of a local Black Lives Matter protest were critical of the sloganeering and their origins and intentions of the BLM movement. I made no racist comment or racist insinuation. These comments and observations have come to the attention of the directors of false racial outrage. This has precipitated a very coordinated demand for me to be fired by left-wing agitators and their acolytes, angrily emoting based upon their own flawed assumptions and poorly informed opinion. There's a loud clamor for homogeneity of thought and action. There has been no rational discussion of the merits of my opinion and observations. However, there has been a demand for me to bow to a set of beliefs that are illogical, devoid of reason, untrue, and unconstitutional. Ideological enforcers are now conducting a coordinated campaign to destroy my reputation and eliminate me as your city administrator. Diversity of viewpoint cannot be tolerated by neo-Marxists. Unity of viewpoint is essential in all things great and small. To them, unity of viewpoint is a requirement for all serious change. Once the group has been purified, change will only require the snap of a finger. No more gridlock, no more conversation. The collective can be activated quickly and powerfully. The second path is totalitarian in nature, and it is this model that certain members of this council are bending toward, maybe one. Perhaps some of you believe you are representing a universally outraged community. That is simply not true. The vast majority of our residents still value a city administrator who is willing to stand up to a group so devoid of intellect and reason. The great irony of this situation, for those of you who might be swayed by this left-wing mob, is that you will never be able to free yourself from the fealty to their required dogmas. If you fall short on parroting their version of ideological purity, the same thing will eventually happen to you. To the residents of Selah, as long as I remain the city administrator of this fine city, I promise the following. 1, I will continue to provide strong and competent leadership for the staff and thoughtful advice to your elected representatives. 2, I will continue to be a responsible steward of your tax dollars and will remain mindful of the great trust you give to me to faithfully execute the city budget. 3, I will continue to be fair in all deliberations. I will not favor one group or person due to differing viewpoint or race and religion. 4, equal protection under the law will be strictly followed, no exceptions. 5, I will do everything in my power to protect this city from the mayhem and evil that we are witnessing in Seattle and Portland. 6, I will continue to support our police department through adequate funding, emphasis on training, and understand the difficult and sometimes thankless work they must do every day. 7, I will always stand for our flag, honor our nation's history, and remember the sacrifices of those who made our nation the greatest republic in the history of the world. 8, I will never forget or forsake the oath that I took nearly 4 decades ago when I was a young Marine. I swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And finally, I will never quit or take a knee, even in the face of personal slander, lies, and death threats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wayman. Suzanne.
I have a comment. I take great offense to your characterization of people speaking out against you as being left-wing agitators and the mob. These are people, the people I've spoken with are citizens of Selah. They are people here that are speaking out of something that's important to them. And I think we need to stop the rhetoric of calling them things like left-wing agitators. I think they have the right to speak out, to speak their truth without being disrespected and spoken of the way that you just spoke of them. I don't appreciate it, and I don't agree with it.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
It's Kevin.
We have a motion to adjourn by Jackie, a second by Kevin. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? We are now adjourned. Good night. Have a great evening.
Andrew,
Yes, sir.
do you have any more people online?
There are 70 people still online,
Okay, thank you.
but I'm prepared to close the meeting.
Thank you.